I could see having a czar of AI. I could see having a czar of crypto. Why would I want one czar for AI and crypto? You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you. It's Alan Schimmel for the Techstrong gang. We've got a great Techstrong gang lineup with some great stuff to talk and show you about today. Let me introduce you to today's gang members. First of all, she's back from AWS reInvent, back home. It looks like in Colorado, I could tell from that background. Futurum analyst, infrastructure pro, Camberly Bates. Hey, Camberly, it's great to, it was better to see you in person, but it's great to see you here on the gang.
Yeah, and I just spent the weekend in Sonoma at the American Society for AI, which is a think tank. So that was...
Sounds like a tough gig.
It was pretty fascinating, yeah.
Yep. No wine, was there?
Oh, they had a little bit there.
They
They
managed to scrape up
wine,
a little wine.
Yeah, a little bit.
Good for you. Also joining us back from his recent escapades on the East Coast, I heard, rumor has it, he was spotted in New York. Our friend Stephen Foskin. Stephen, how are you?
I am well, thank you. Yes, I was traveling through Manhattan, carrying my Peak Design backpack and wondering why I got so much police attention last week. True fact. However, no, I was there for vacation, and it was a lot of fun. Great food, great entertainment. Love New York.
You didn't take a bus in, did you?
Alas. No, actually, even worse, I drove.
Really?
Do not drive in Manhattan.
No, they try to discourage you. All right, but it's great to have you here, Stephen. Then also remote today, but we're happy to have her. She's pretty in pink. It's our own Trace Bannon. Hey, Trace, how are you?
I am doing very well. I'm glad to see everybody today. It seems like it's been a bit.
It has been. It has been more than a bit. I'm glad you're here, though. Any travels for you recently?
No, I am so happy that I've been at home for 2 whole weeks, and I've got at least 2 more weeks at home. So the novelty of 4 continuous weeks, I don't know what to do with myself.
Well, I hope your marriage will survive.
We shall see.
I say the same thing when I'm home that long too, but I'm actually home till the end of the year too, so fantastic. Okay. Then joining us, also remote, but he's back home in it's not really upstate New York still, but it's not New York City.
It's just above New Rochelle, where the
Dick Van Dyke. Is it Dick Van Dyke in New Rochelle? And Mary Tyler Moore, or is that a little too old?
That may be a little too old for some folks, but they watch some of those old time television shows during the day now, right?
Pluto TV, baby.
Yeah.
It's our chief content officer, Mike Vizard.
Yep. Continuing the marriage theme, I went to see our town over the weekend as part of a celebration of my anniversary. So that was fun, and we had a lovely time.
Well, happy anniversary to you guys, Mike.
Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Joining me here in studio, she is our sustainability, all things green editor and analyst, Bonnie Schneider. Hey, Bonnie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be here.
And have you been on the road really? I know you went to Austin, but...
Oh, yes, Austin. No, maybe 2025. We'll see.
2025 is shaping up. It'll be here before we know it. Right. Crazy. All right. So gang members, welcome. Let's face it, it's the middle of December, hard news. It's a little maybe on a slower news day. Mike has gotten some great topics for us. We're going to head up with David Sachs has been named as the, and I guess this wouldn't need congressional approval, so he's in. David Sachs is the White House AI and crypto czar, as reported by Bloomberg and other sources. Mike, what's up here?
Yeah, apparently he's going to chair the Science and Technology Council in the White House, which I guess Trump is now referring to as the AI and Crypto Czar, and he's part of that PayPal mafia out there where it's all these venture capitalists who pool their resources, includes Elon and, of course, JD Vance and some of the other
Peter
well-known
Thiel.
Mr. Thiel. And it feels a little bit on the top end of it, maybe, payback for, all the funding for the election. Who knows? But I got to ask the question up front. I mean, I think it's a good thing to have somebody sitting on these things who actually knows something about technology. I just wish it wasn't somebody who maybe has a vested interest in the outcome. But what's your thought?
You're not really going to ask me that, but are you?
I'll
It
jump
starts
in.
with an O and ends with a Y.
I know how you feel about that, but ultimately, I would devil's advocate here. I mean, it feels like to me we need somebody to sort this stuff out because nobody seems to have a real consensus opinion about AI or crypto, and they're not going away. So what should we do?
Well, having a champion, I'm not going to speak to the champion, but having a champion, we need that, right? We've not had a strong voice coming out of the government space. We've had all kinds of amazing consortiums that have been brought together. What is it? The AI safety organization. So they're large and lumbering and have not yet made the kind of, statements, guidance, haven't put forward some ideas. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have somebody as that technology champion. Now, should it be the same for AI and crypto? Well, that's an interesting question. And is this the right choice? I'm not even going to speak to that, but I do like having somebody who has experience as opposed to somebody without experience. So there you go. That's as far as I'll go to bait everybody else to join me on this. What do you think, guys?
So the first thing I would ask this group here is, do we think that AI is going to fundamentally change our world?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It already has.
And with the nods going on, there needs to be some level of both government and Lord knows I'm not a government kind of federalist kind of, government kind of person. I am a local person. But there needs to be that kind of leadership. And that is both for the big investments that need to be done, the things that are going on geopolitically in terms of the investments and our investments as a country. And then the other piece of it that you touched on, which is some of the security, probably the regulations, whatever that is. I just came back from 3 days of this think tank, American Society for AI. I mean, I swear I am the dumbest person in that room.
Sometimes that's a good thing, though.
Right. I'm sitting over in the corner. Listen, I am just at awe with the people that are there. And this comes from all walks of life. We have government. There was a lieutenant general there that headed up AI for the DOD. There were people, there was also another group, there's 50 of us there. There were several people from the armed forces. We had one of the leading spokespeople on macroeconomics, formerly of Oxford, now heading up a think tank on macroeconomics, who ran a game with us that was, a 3-hour game on political, AI, and investment. And it was absolutely eye-opening to look at, saying, what is China doing? What are we doing? Where are we going? And if anything it says is that, yes, we do believe this is going to be massively changing in our world. Therefore, and it's going to affect everybody's life, everybody from the trucker to the assembly worker, to the person working at McDonald's, and to the coders. And it's going to affect our lives in terms of labor. It's going to affect our lives in terms of money. And with all of that, yes, there needs to be a bigger, broader view of it. And my opinion on our Congress people, they don't have enough knowledge understanding what's real and what's not real. And that needs to come to the forefront. So I think this is as big, to me, naming him there is as big as us looking at what the CHIPS Act was doing in terms of bringing that investment back into the United States and putting the manufacturing on premise into there. So that's kind of my big picture coming out of, where I've been for the last 3 days.
The interesting speculation is that this fellow is going to distinguish between use cases and the AI models, and that he's not going to push for regulation of the models themselves as much as it would be narrow use cases for particular applications that might have that profound impact you were talking about, which is kind of what happened in the state of California when they tried to put that regulation through. And, the state was going to theoretically review all the AI models. And the governor said, we don't have the resources or the expertise to do that anyway. So he basically said no. I think that's the way to go. But, to your point, who's going to, keep an eye on what is happening with those AI models? Because, those are kind of the core use cases and people can use them for good and for ill.
Actually, and that's a really good, one of the things that we do in that group is we have a debate, and there's about 3 or 4 topics that we have, these 5-minute debates, argument back and forth. And I had the privilege of debating on open source and taking the side of the open source, why we should have open source LLMs. And then we had the other side of it. And we didn't really talk about the models as much as we talked about the LLMs and the impact of the LLMs and what they needed and why we would need to be able to peer into those LLMs, why we need to be able to see in there, why, where those pieces are, and should they be open source or not? If I'm developing a genomic LLM, do we want that to be open source because of what it could happen to? So I think these are really, really tough questions that we as a society need to have strong, open debate on. And that's what I'm hoping is going to happen with this, because I think out of the other side of it is where we come out with some really good answers.
So I've got some thoughts here.
I'm surprised.
We're missing the elephant for the trees. Okay, there's a big fat elephant here. Is AI going to change our lives? Absolutely. Do we need a federal government, not mandate, but direction that helps set a strategic course for the United States to pursue AI superiority and supremacy in the world, much like a Manhattan Project or space race or what have you? Absolutely. Absolutely. When John F. Kennedy said, we're going to go to the moon, not because it's easy, because it's hard. And he set up a leader of the NASA, the space program. Did he also say, oh, and by the way, this guy's also in charge of the Treasury? Oh, and by the way, he's from my cronies who paid money to get in here and already have an agenda. Oh, and by the way, did John F. Kennedy own a business in the crypto space that he didn't give up and has therefore a vested conflict of interest? Have we all lost our minds and we're all smoking this shit that we think that this is the way the government's supposed to work? Yes, appoint an AI czar. Get the best and brightest to lead our AI efforts in America. We need to own AI. He's not the AI crypto czar, and he's not from the oligarchy. And the president shouldn't be having an interest in a cryptocurrency business while this is going on. That's the problem. That's the elephant. And if you guys don't want to see the elephant for what it is, the elephant's going to lay doo-doo on your head.
So
That's
do
my
you
thoughts.
do you think crypto is a legitimate currency, or is it a giant Ponzi scheme at the end of the day?
What I think really doesn't matter. There are people making fortunes of money on crypto. It's $100,000 or whatever is Bitcoin now, right? So, is there a reason for the government to get involved in crypto? Again, 100%. I think we saw this with the prosecutions over the last couple of years of, when there's that much money involved, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And so, yes, we need that. I would think that's more of a treasury kind of function than it is my National Science Foundation. I don't understand, unless it's strictly a blockchain that he's looking into and not crypto. But why I think the fact that they've linked AI and crypto to one person who happens to be from the PayPal mafia, how many more breadcrumbs do you need till you wind up in the witch's oven like Hansel and Gretel?
Fair enough. I had not looked at it that closely as in terms of the background on it. I was hoping that the person that does head up on the AI side, and I don't have much to say on the crypto side because I haven't tracked it at all, zero, is having somebody from the tech industry heading that.
Absolutely.
Not academia.
Camberly, I agree with you. We need
And I'm not sure who you would have head that up. And maybe he's not quite the right person because of all the
he
reasons
might
why.
be. And if that's all he's doing, good for it. I mean,
But let's track it back to some fundamentals that I think we all agree on. There needs to be an AI leader. I'm going to call it a champion. I don't like the term czar. There needs to be somebody who is looking at crypto both from the technical perspective and the socioeconomic perspective. So we need to have that crypto champion. There is a technology bend to it. Should they be the same or not? My own personal belief, that not representing anybody else, is that they should be differentiated. So what's the other thing that we've agreed to so far? That champion needs to be associated to the federal government, but not from an academic setting only, because we need to make sure that there's a real tie-in to the tech industry, because that's where the money is right now. That's where the money and the investment is going. The research that we're doing privately, the research that we're doing under academic institutions pales in comparison to what we see in the big tech. So we need to have somebody who has insight into that. So we need somebody tied to tech. Don't know if this is the right guy or not, but maybe having a champion over two things tied together is too closely aligned, right? To tie into Alan's passion, that seems a little bit too close. But I also agree that we need to have that champion. We need somebody that has a voice out there, because one of the worst things that's been happening over the last year is we're spinning up organization after organization, think tank after think tank, and we're not making a lot of forward progress. We are nasal gaving, we are looking down our belly buttons, wondering what's going on. And we're not, we've said it. I think Alan might have been the person that I heard this from the first time years ago. What is it that the US innovates, China, Europe regulates and China replicates? Well, this is one of those times where Europe is ahead of us with regulation, and we need to catch up with them. Even if we're not regulating in the same way, we're not investing heavily enough in that because we are the innovation drivers. But this is a slippery slope. This innovation is slippery. This is very slippery.
But the regulation in Europe has closed down some of the investments going on.
Absolutely.
So the overall feeling is the needs to step back. And this gets back to we did have a person from the high up in California. I can't name names because of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk about myself and what I heard, but I can't name names. But we had somebody very, very high up in the executive branch of California talking about the AI investments, what they're doing in there, and why they did veto that law, and where they are with that, and their position on why that needed to be vetoed. So, what they're hopefully preferring to see coming out of and then there was a lot of commentary about how they were looking at the government, the European government on there, and what that had done to the investments that were over there.
I don't know if hyper-regulation right now is the way to go for AI. I think we just have to ensure that it's not quickly monopolized by the usual tech monopolies.
But that's going to take policy and regulation,
Yeah.
Alan. So I don't necessarily think that we should follow what the EU is doing. My kudos to EU is that they're actually moving on.
And that's what they do, right or wrong. Right. They regulate, and
well, they get out there and have the conversation faster than we're having the conversation,
and that's
right?
okay. But we do innovate faster than them.
Oh, absolutely. But this is that time where we need a little bit of balance.
Look, this is akin to the space race.
Oh, absolutely.
And to that point, let me jump in here, Alan. To that point, what we need is leadership. And what Traci said earlier in this conversation is dead on. Unfortunately, that means that we need understanding as well. We need to have somebody who understands the technology and somebody who's willing to lead on the technology. I'd like to point out that the Biden administration came out with an executive order that was very pro-crypto in 2022. That order was certainly not written by Joe Biden, who probably can't spell crypto. And there was nothing more there. There was really no leadership at all in the Biden administration with regard to pushing that forward. Like I said, it was surprisingly pro-crypto, and crypto, Bitcoin rallied and crypto was hot again, but then nothing. And the same with AI. The Biden administration put Anita Dunn in charge of the AI. I mean, if you guys remember this big AI get-together that they had, Anita Dunn is a communications director. She's not a leader, and she's also not a technologist. I have nothing against her. She's probably a wonderful human being, but I don't know how she was supposed to gather these people together on AI and come up with an AI plan that would then have any kind of action behind it. And it certainly didn't. So far, we've seen absolutely zero leadership from Washington on this. I guess that's a way of not regulating it, but it's also a way of not leading it. And no matter who's in charge, no matter what your position is on crypto, on AI, on the mix of crypto and AI, I think that we can all agree that we need somebody who has a good understanding of these technologies and the implications and the social factors that affect these, that's willing to listen to people, to consider various viewpoints, and that's then able to lead on this in Washington and get something done. Because so far, essentially, what we're doing is nothing. And we're wasting a lot of time and energy. Is Sachs the right guy for that? I doubt it. But at least he has an understanding of it. But it does also, I would also point out that he has been much more crypto focused than AI focused. I think it's very likely that Sachs is going to be the crypto czar, parentheses AI. And that is not leadership, and that's not what we need.
Bonnie?
Yeah, I was just going to say that part of whoever is in charge and what their mission is, that has to be. And I was looking into this. If David Sachs's talk about this is the energy use that AI is causing, and I didn't find that much about that. And I'd like to see that as a bigger part of the conversation in terms of addressing AI and crypto and data centers. I see a lot of people talking about that we need to lean into renewable energy, but I'd like to see more of that in the conversation.
Let me just play devil's advocate here for a moment. Hear me out. There are certain times in our history where we have made it a national directive to do something. The space race, the Manhattan Project, things of that nature. But for the most part, the United States is who the United States is because of the magical wonder of the market at work. And sometimes it's okay to take a laissez-faire attitude and say, let's let the market sort this out. And it has worked for us, right? The internet, though it was government funded and DARPA and all that stuff, really the commercial internet became what it is without a heck of a lot of, we didn't have an internet czar. We didn't even have a lot of internet regulation. It was very much the wild, wild west.
But we did have Al Gore.
Well, yes.
He invented it.
Yes,
Thank you.
we did have Al Gore. And yes. Hello, Al Gore, wherever you are.
Sorry, I had to do it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But there's something to be said for letting this thing percolate, right? And don't kneecap it. Right? Let the American innovation engine run wild and let the market determine where you are.
If it were not such a powerful tool, then I might agree with you. If it were not such a powerful force, I would be more likely to agree with you. But let's let nuclear go unregulated because, it's something that can be really good. Just let the market regulate it. My point there is that
that's how 3 Mile Island got its license. I'm kidding.
My point on that is it is that profound that I don't think we can simply, and the money associated to it is that profound that we can't simply wait for the markets, because the markets are doing what the markets want to do right now. And they're not necessarily, well, I won't say necessarily. I don't see all the evidences that we're looking at the social implications, that we're looking at the sustainability. I mean, to the point that was made earlier, when I Google something now, I'm not asking for an AI search, yet an AI search has now been added every time you do something simple. That's overkill. Is that a bottle of water every time? Right? They're opening up TMI. You know this, right? TMI is being reopened because an agreement was signed with Microsoft because is it Google who's building, right? Investing in building a nuclear power plant?
I think they got shot down on that one, but okay.
I don't know.
But look, hey, you know what? And
There's
you
a
know
lot
where
going on
I
there.
am. I usually I'm a little bit on one side, but I'm all for more nuclear. I think short term, I'd rather us build next gen nuclear plants than keep fracking and getting earthquakes in places like Ohio.
All right,
I'm a
before
Pennsylvania
this
anti-fracker, so well, not anti-fracker.
before this conversation goes completely off the rails, I'm going to close
went
it
off the
here and
rails a
note,
long
and I'm
time
going to
ago.
say one thing. I have noticed that there's a large number of people from Florida in the cabinet, so I'm going to nominate Alan Schimmel to join the Technology Council.
I would have to respectfully decline. My work here is too strategic.
That would be great.
And if it meant
And
I
you-
couldn't do Techstrong Gang every day, no, not happening.
You guys are here.
They don't have anyone from
here.
Boca Raton.
Yeah, I just want to make
They
sure
do
that
not. They need a Boca Raton person in there.
Hey, Mike, I just want to make sure I was clear on something. I'm not against the concepts of fracking. I live in Pennsylvania where there's a lot of fracking, and I've seen the negatives of what has happened with how it has been executed. So I'm a science geek, but yeah, I just want to make sure that I was clear on my
I
own
get
personal view around that.
I
So.
get it. All right. Hey, we went way long on this. We need to
Yeah.
move along. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang, excuse me, and we're going to come back and Bonnie says Smokey the Bear likes AI. Maybe we make him the czar. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Modernize your business to fuel innovation and elevate customer experiences. With the Builder Community Hub, AWS and its partner network provide essential tools for transforming applications and infrastructure to fully leverage the cloud. Discover free trials, in-depth demos, and essential resources to empower DevOps engineers and developers to deliver value faster and more reliably. Visit the Builder Community Hub to learn more.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Techstrong Gang. In the last section, we were talking about European regulations, and this story coming up has to do with that as well, with a news update. So in Europe, there's a lot of regulations happening around sustainability and sustainability in tech, but in sustainability specifically regarding deforestation. And deforestation is destruction of global forests with supply chain activities like logging, transferring, really depleting natural resources. And the latest statistics show that deforestation could lead to up to 30% in carbon emissions. So it's an important area that needs to be monitored. So the European Commission has put in regulations that will make companies report exactly how their supply chain, everything they do, affects deforestation. But as of just late last week, they updated the deadlines for these new regulations. So small and medium companies will have till 2026 to do this reporting. But larger enterprises, the deadline's exactly 1 year from now, December 2025. So let's take a closer look at how advanced technologies like AI and satellite monitoring are helping corporations monitor their forest use.
Hi everyone, I'm Bonnie Schneider with your EcoTech Analyst Insights. How do you track millions of trees across the globe? Through artificial intelligence and satellite technology. Safeguarding woodlands is a key focus of the EU's deforestation regulations. These rules will require companies to show that their products are not linked to habitat destruction. The scope is massive, affecting everything from cocoa to cattle. Geolocation data and complete supply chain documentation will be mandated for commodities like palm oil, soy, rubber, and wood products. So how can advanced technology help? Through real-time monitoring of areas that were once difficult to track, AI-powered satellites provide detailed insights into forests, while machine learning algorithms detect subtle changes in tree cover. Given the challenges of compliance to meet the requirements. Meanwhile, larger corporations are racing to implement monitoring systems to maintain their access to the EU market. The integration of satellite monitoring and machine learning is not only helping organizations meet regulatory requirements, it's also redefining how global supply chains manage natural resources.
If you think you're seeing a pattern here of European regulations being issued and then just within weeks of the deadline, an extension is pushed through due to pushback, you're right. That's what we've seen in a lot of these regulations. And this new deforestation one is an example of that. But I think the overall point is that these regulations are coming, even if they are delayed, and being aware of how we use implements on the supply chain is something that companies are going to have to monitor.
I happen to think this is the way the EU does things. They did it. This is the same pattern for GDPR. It's the same pattern for DORA, and for their AI initiatives as well. What they do is, and you got to give them credit, they recognize that something needs to be done. They plant a flag in the ground, a stake, and say, this is our view. This is how we think it should be regulated. They delay those regulations initially at least a year. And then as you get closer, they'll delay them again to further fine tune it. But what they've said is, we are going to have regulation here. It may not be perfect today, but we'll get there. And, with GDPR, I mean, for all the doomsdayers out there, it seems to have worked pretty well. We'll see how DORA and AI work as well as this. Again, I give them credit for moving it. I'll tell you something. This is something I follow closely, is deforestation and greenhouse gas and all of that. I was looking, Stephen, I don't know, maybe if you've seen this, there's a couple of programs out there that allows a corporation like Techstrong to, in essence, seed a forest. It's our forest. And it winds up costing about $1 or $1.50 a tree to plant trees there. And, you get your plaque, but more than a plaque, you actually get an app. And you could monitor the health of your forest, and you could name trees for individual customers, employees, and stuff. Like, they gamified it. And I think for $1.50 a tree, the thing is, you do have to buy a minimum of 1,000 trees. So it's about $1,500. It's $1,500 well spent in my mind.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about doing it for the holiday season, sending our customers that we planted a tree on their behalf in the Techstrong forest.
That's great. And we've had some of those companies on Ecotech Insights that do it globally, and it's a growing movement.
Yeah.
I mean, to the EU's credit, they're also encouraging member states to plant major forests. I know in Ireland, the farmers get paid to give up farming and plant trees, and the EU helps fund that.
This sounds so nice, doesn't it? I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist. But no, I'm sorry. I love this. I love the idea of planting trees. We looked into that with Tech Field Day. We looked into carbon credits. We looked into planting trees. I hate to say it, but when you actually dug underneath the curtain, most of those programs were complete BS. I love the idea of having these things. I love that they exist, but I fear that maybe they might not have the intended result, or at least maybe they might not live up to their lofty promises. I wish that they did, but I suspect, being a bit of a realist, that much of these promises would be only achieved at a much greater investment financially than most people would be willing to give. And therefore, I worry that maybe they're not actually real. So,
But there's an
somebody
app.
convince
Yeah.
me. Honey,
But there's an app
And it's
that
the
goes
tech
with
that
it.
can monitor it.
I was going to say that, perhaps a pivot on this, because this is Techstrong Gang, is talking a little bit about the technology that supports this. I mean, it is fantastic and phenomenal. I had the opportunity, I think this was 2014, to start working with drones and with a form of AI, not all of what we have now. And what we were doing was we were doing geospatial change detection. So imagine that I fly over a fracking pond and I know exactly what the depth should be. I can see that the fence is there. I then fly over another time because I have predetermined flight paths, and I can see that something has changed. Right? I can see that the water is now gone or the fence is now gone. There's dramatic amounts of capabilities when you're talking about using the automations, when you're talking about, and this is not even using satellite. This is using LiDAR. This is using more geolocated technologies, but it's fantastic. I'd like to pivot just a little bit and hear just a little bit more. What's the most exciting technology on the horizon for us to use in this kind of a way?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
when I saw
everybody's
that
talking-
article,
Sorry.
go ahead, Mike.
Everybody's talking about carbon capture, but I'm not sure that works either. But theoretically, we're gonna capture all this carbon and shove it in a mountain or into the ocean somewhere.
Camberly?
Some stuff that's going on out in the Midwest.
So when I read that article, the first thing I kind of like popped in my brain was wildfires, and try to look at how we're potentially using AI for wildfires. And we've been using modeling for quite some time on especially the big fires that we have out west, and modeling their direction, what they're doing, et cetera. Although I think that the feet on the street and the guys that have been doing this for so long and the fighting fires probably know as well as any model will do because of the knowledge base that they have. But that modeling potentially can save lives in terms of how we fight the fires and what the directions the winds are going and where things and how we put the planes up, et cetera, to go and drop the chemicals on in those areas to control some of the fires. So that's one of the areas I think is extremely exciting about what we're doing within the forest management piece of it. The other thing I asked the question about is one of the reasons why we do have fires. Our density of our forests have increased massively because we haven't logged as much as we used to in those areas. And so I'm kind of wondering, okay, so we're planting trees, but yet we have this density problem in some of the areas.
We
I'm not a
need
full
we need a
wait, we're not-
forestation czar.
We do. We need a forest czar.
I nominate Smokey.
There you go. Well, a tangent to
He
all
was
of this.
wait, he was a big contributor to the
He was.
campaign this year.
Smokey the Bear.
Yeah,
I
that should qualify him.
what are we talking about?
Yeah, we're
know
going
what?
off tangent.
I think we should nominate Yogi. He'd do a better job.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Well, he is
something
wait,
to
wait,
consider.
wait
Go
for it.
ahead.
Well,
He's the
he
depth
is
that-
smarter than the average bear.
He's also really good at stealing from picnic
Okay,
baskets,
wait,
which would fit
we-
in.
Yeah.
We got to take a break and come to our next because we'll never finish today. What a crazy Tuesday this is on Techstrong Gang.
Oh my goodness.
We'll be back in a moment with more.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
So thanks very much for giving me a chance to come on here and talk a little bit about our networking field day event, which was a few weeks ago now. As you know, with the Tech Field Day crew, we do field day events in different topics. And we recently did Networking Field Day. This is probably our biggest, best, brightest subject area, simply because there's a lot of companies that are doing a lot of really cool, innovative things in the space. And I thought I would share it with the Techstrong community a little bit. Basically because overall, one of the things I like to say about field days, we don't actually have a topic apart from, networking, which is a pretty big topic. But there's always a topic that emerges from the directions the companies are going, the conversations they're having, what they're saying. Now, going into networking field day, I would have guessed that the topic was going to be AI because it's 2024. However, it turned out that there was a lot more nuance in that discussion. Yeah, there's a lot of AI in there. But the major trends that we heard, number one was the as a service of everything. This is a huge trend in networking now where companies are basically challenging the idea that end users would even buy equipment anymore, even data center equipment, and would instead subscribe to an as a service model to have that networking equipment brought in, deployed, and used. It's sort of the natural evolution of some of the OpEx transformation that we've seen in the data center up until now. Another key trend was network automation around operations, around management, around scalability, and so on. There again, there's an AI angle to that, but it really is focused on addressing sort of the key needs in networking. And frankly, one of those needs in networking is IT pros. I'm sure that many of the folks listening to Techstrong Gang have some experience in networking. Well, networking needs you. It's very hard for companies to find people who really have deep networking experience, the ability to configure and manage and maintain these things, the ability to operate them long term. And over time, that's become even more difficult as people are increasingly pivoting to other fields. So there were a bunch of different companies presenting. I want to call out a few of them. Two of the companies that got a lot of attention were a company called Nile and a company called Meter. These are the guys that are upsetting the apple cart with regard to buying and using networking equipment. Essentially, they're in there disrupting the whole thing and saying, what if you didn't buy it? What if we managed it for you? What if we deployed it for you? What if it was sort of a service that we're providing for you? In terms of automation, we heard from Arista again, which is a company we've been following a long time, talking about how they're doing observability and zero trust security and management. We heard from Itential, who's talking about operationalizing and orchestrating network automation, Path Solutions, talking about network visibility and automated troubleshooting. But of course, again, it's 2024, so we're hearing about AI as well. Elicity has a cloud-native microsegmentation platform. They're doing zero trust. They're doing security. They're doing automation and policy. Aviz Networks has a AI networking stack as well with real-time insights to how the network is performing and also leveraging AI and allowing companies to leverage AI. So overall, it was a really interesting event. I am not a networking nerd. That title belongs to Tom Hollingsworth, but I will say that it shows the direction that the networking industry is heading, shows the direction the overall IT industry is heading. And actually, Camberly, I'd love to kind of throw this ball to you because you know more about data infrastructure and infrastructure generally and the direction that the industry is heading. Is this a surprise to you that the networking industry would be heading toward as a service, as a model?
Yes. And I'll say that because I just finished going through looking at a few items. I had some folks asking us about where STAS was, storage as a service. And I'll counter that a little bit as well. And so I started digging into saying, okay, so how much is actually this getting traction and where is it at? And I put out a bunch of feelers into my market. I looked at the data. It's really hard when you look at the financials coming out of the companies about when they talk about ARR, not all of it is managed service. A lot of that is just subscription kind of stuff that's in the ARR. So you got to parse that out to figure out how much of this is actually storage as a service, how much of this is subscription along with the hardware that goes along with it. And overall, there's a slowdown. And that slowdown in that purchasing of storage as a service is partially because people has spent a lot of their money on the AI items, et cetera. And maybe somebody was saying, yes, they're spending all this OpEx over there on the AI piece of it or whatever they're doing. So they don't have the money. So they're using their CapEx to purchase instead. Some of it is that they're doing the analysis of it and saying at the end of the day, it's cheaper to buy the storage because on the storage items, differently than network, so this may be different, is that often what I'll buy is buy new, and then my older stuff goes on to do some, it's kind of like the used car goes to the kid, right? So I give my used car to my teenager to use. So that's where we've seen that. On the flip side of that, we believe that the other items like these full stacks that are going in for AI are probably going in with some level of an as a service capability or support system. So it may be just that we're seeing this slowdown on the storage side of the house. And this is actually varying by vendor that we're talking to. But yes, it's kind of, it was an interesting, I just dug into this last November. This is like, current news about, folks that I was talking to. So yeah. And it could be different with networking because I don't think you deprecate your old networking gear someplace else. I think you really change it up. I mean, you keep it for about 7 years and then you change it over. So probably from an OpEx standpoint, it makes a whole lot of sense.
I feel like the cloud service providers are actually driving the most innovation in the networking space these days. And that's because they have the use case that drives it. And AI has gotten them to double down because there's just a massive amount of data that they're dealing with. And if you look at what AWS was talking about at reInvent, they're doing everything from, building their own processors to creating new cables connections for the fiber optic transceivers that they're using just to optimize traffic flow. And it matters to them greatly. So they're like, same thing that they're telling Intel, they're telling Cisco. They're like, we'll do it without you.
So shameless plug, we do a show on Techstrong TV and sponsored by our friends at Cloudflare called the Connectivity Cloud. And that's really what it's about. It's about networking in a world where we have that hyperscale cloud center, where we have assets on the edge, where so much lives on our endpoints. And how do we connect all of those in tomorrow's network? And how does that all work? And we have some great guests on that show. It's a fascinating show. Every other week we do one. But it makes for great tech field days, and it was a great tech field day. I should also mention another shameless plug: Tech Field Day is available on Techstrong.tv. When they're live, we stream them on Techstrong.tv. But if you want to go back and watch this Tech Field Day, Stephen, are they on Techstrong.tv and they're on YouTube as well?
Yeah, all the presentations are on YouTube for the last 15 years. In fact, there's a lot of backlog there. So you could actually see one of the very first ever presentations from Arista, for example, way back when, over a decade ago. But yeah, all these presentations that we talked about there are available on YouTube as well and on Techstrong TV. I do feel like, to Camberly's point, I wonder if maybe one of the changes that we're seeing in terms of the OpEx shift is just allocation of capital. Maybe companies, because they're putting so much resource into buying AI hardware, buying new data center, that they just have less capital to spend on, CapEx in other areas. And I wonder, too, if this sort of cloudification overall is leading them to just sort of a different perspective, a different kind of mental paradigm when it comes to deploying and managing systems. Because I would have guessed that the storage as a service would have taken off much, much greater than that. But you certainly have more visibility into that. So it just hasn't taken off?
It took off. I mean, it did take off. And there's definitely a percentage of it that's out there that's as a service. Clearly you've got all the cloud stuff, the cloud that's going on there. But there just seemed to be the slowdown. And I do believe, it's different products are purchased in different ways. And as I said, I don't really know the networking industry. I don't know the technology very well. I don't know their cycles of upgrades. I know they're different than the servers. That's different than the storage. And there are 3 different, series there. 7 years is networking, 3 years tends to be servers, and 5 years tends to be storage. So that kind of changes things. I would also think that, HPE started their world of GreenLake and as a service on the networking side, and they had a phenomenal success with that. phenomenal. And so even the guy that was running that networking piece came over to run the storage side. We didn't see the same on the success on the storage side. So I think there's something unique about your networking piece that is driving this that's different than the other technologies.
Interesting. Guys, I got to pull the plug only because I have to run over to the next studio here and do my next event here with the CD Foundation.
Nice.
CD pipeline. But Camberly, Chase, Stephen, Mike, and Bonnie,
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. I hope you all have enjoyed our Techstrong Gang too. As usual, we have a full day of Techstrong TV following this, so stay tuned here, stay on point, and we'll see you tomorrow on Wednesday for Techstrong Gang. This is Alan Schimmel. We're out.